Honey, come sit a spell and let me tell you about a Sunday afternoon that changed everything. It was one of those golden April days, the kind where the air smells like damp earth and blooming lilacs, and you think, just for a moment, that the world is exactly as it should be. I was in the kitchen, wiping down the counters and humming a little tune, waiting for my daughter, Lily, to come home from her grandmother Eleanor's house. I heard the front door click and then the soft, rhythmic patter of her little sneakers on the hardwood. But something was off. Usually, Lily would come bursting in like a whirlwind, talking a mile a minute about the games they played or the sweets they ate. This time, the footsteps were slow, heavy, like she was carrying something far too big for a 7-year-old to hold. When she walked into the kitchen, my heart just about stopped. She was still wearing the yellow sundress I'd ironed for her that morning, but it had a dark smudge of chocolate ice cream right on the bodice, Eleanor's favorite way to spoil her. Her hair was still in those tight French braids I'd done, but a few golden wisps had come loose, framing a face that looked entirely too old for her years. She didn't go for the cookie jar. She didn't ask for juice. She just stood there in the doorway, clutching the hem of her dress, looking at me with eyes that were swimming in confusion. "Mommy," she whispered. Her voice was so thin, so fragile. I dropped the dishcloth and knelt right there on the linoleum so I could be eye to eye with her. "I'm right here, sugar." "What is it? Did something happen at Grandma's?" She took a shaky breath, her little chest heaving. "Mommy, am I part of Grandma's family?" Now, you have to understand, that question felt like a physical blow to my chest. It took the wind right out of me. For 12 years, I had poured every ounce of my soul into the Hartwell family. I had cooked their Thanksgiving turkeys, I had nursed their sick, I had remembered every birthday when their own sons forgot. I had built my entire life around the idea that I was the glue holding them together. And here was my flesh and blood, my beautiful, innocent daughter, asking me if she belonged. "Of course you are, sweetheart," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady even though my hands were starting to shake. I reached out and tucked a loose hair behind her ear. "You're a Hartwell. You're Grandma's only granddaughter. Why on earth would you ask such a thing?" Lily looked down at her shoes, her voice dropping even lower. "Grandma was talking to Aunt Patricia in the garden. They didn't know I was behind the big hedge. Grandma said, she said you weren't really part of the family. She told Aunt Patricia that you were just someone Daddy married." The room went cold. It didn't matter that the sun was shining outside or that the oven was still warm. In that second, the last 12 years flashed before my eyes, every snub, every cold shoulder, every time Eleanor had looked right through me at the dinner table. But hearing it come from my daughter's mouth? Hearing that Eleanor had let those poisonous words reach Lily's ears? That was a different kind of pain. It wasn't just a slight anymore. It was a declaration of war. Lily looked up at me, a single tear finally escaping and trekking through the chocolate stain on her cheek. She said, "If you aren't family, then maybe I'm only half family." "Is that true, Mommy? Are you just someone Daddy married?" I felt a rage rising up in me, a hot, quiet fire I'd spent a decade taming. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive over to Eleanor's right then and demand an apology. But I looked at my girl, and I knew I had to be the bridge. I leaned forward and pulled her into my arms, burying my face in the scent of her hair, shampoo and sunshine. Listen to me, Lily, I said into her shoulder, my voice thick with a promise I hadn't even fully formed yet. Grandma has a funny way of saying things sometimes. But I am your mama. And in this house, we are the heart of the family. Don't you ever let anyone tell you different. Do you hear me? She nodded against my neck, her little arms tightening around me. I promise, Mommy. I held her for a long time, watching the dust motes dance in the light on the kitchen floor. On the outside, I was just a mother comforting her child. But on the inside, something had snapped. I had spent 12 years being the industrious daughter-in-law, the invisible engine, the one who made the Hartwell world spin. I had done it all to earn a seat at a table that was never meant for me. As I stroked Lily's hair, a very clear, very cold thought settled in my mind. If Eleanor Hartwell truly believed I was just someone her son married, if I was truly an outsider, then it was time I started acting like one. I wondered, as I squeezed my daughter tight, just how long that real family of hers would last once the outsider stopped doing the work. I gave Lily one last squeeze and stood up, a tight, sharp smile appearing on my face. Why don't you go wash that face, sugar? I think it's time we had a very different kind of Sunday evening. After Lily skipped off to the bathroom, I stayed right there on the kitchen floor, my knees still pressed against the hard linoleum. The silence of the house felt heavy, like the air right before a summer storm breaks. Just someone your father married. Those 6 words kept echoing in my head, over and over, like a bell tolling for a funeral. You know, honey, words have a funny way of stripping away years of hard work in a single heartbeat. I looked around my kitchen, the kitchen where I had spent hundreds of hours prepping Eleanor's favorite holiday meals, making sure the silver was polished and the linens were crisp, all so she wouldn't have a single thing to complain about. I thought about the time I spent 3 days straight hand-making individual beef Wellingtons for her bridge club, only for her to tell the ladies that the caterer had done a passable job. I felt a hollow ache in the center of my chest, but it wasn't sadness, not anymore. It was the feeling of a scales falling from my eyes. For 12 years, I had been the ghost in the machine of the Hartwell family. I was the one who remembered the birthdays. I was the one who sent the flowers when an old family friend passed away. I was the one who made sure David's brothers didn't show up empty-handed to Christmas. I had been so desperate to be in that I never realized I was the only one doing the being. To Eleanor, I wasn't Josephine, the woman who loved her son and raised her granddaughter. I was a utility. A service. A high-end appliance that came with her son's wedding ring. I stood up slowly, my joints popping, and walked over to the sink. I turned on the cold water and let it run over my wrists to stop the shaking. I looked at my reflection in the window over the sink. I saw the daughter of refugees. I saw a woman who had helped build a business from the ground up. I saw a woman who knew the value of $1 and the weight of a promise. Just someone he married, I whispered to the empty kitchen. The disrespect wasn't just a slap in my face, it was a slap in the face of my parents, who taught me that family is a verb, it's something you do, not just something you are. If Eleanor wanted to see what the Hartwell family looked like without that of someone holding the strings, well, I was more than happy to show her. The engine was about to go cold, and I had a feeling the Hartwells weren't quite ready for the chill. You see, Eleanor never did understand the stock I came from. To her, family was a dusty portrait in a gilded frame and a last name that opened doors at the country club. But to me, family was the smell of star anise and roasted ginger simmering in a giant pot at 4 o'clock in the morning. It was the sound of my mother's heavy cleaver hitting the chopping block in a steady rhythm, thump, 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 the heartbeat that kept our world alive. My parents arrived in San Jose as refugees from Vietnam with nothing but the clothes on their backs and a fierce, quiet fire in their bellies. They didn't have old money, they had calloused hands. They built their restaurant empire one bowl of pho at a time, working 20-hour days until their feet bled and their eyes burned. I grew up on a milk crate in the back of those kitchens, watching my mother treat every customer like a long-lost cousin and seeing my father keep the books until the sun came up. They taught me that in this life, you don't get what you wish for, you get what you work for. They taught me that being part of a tribe means you're the first one to arrive and the last one to leave. So, when I married David Hartwell, I brought that same restaurant mentality to his family. I thought if I just worked harder, if I was the most industrious, the most reliable, and the most selfless, I would earn my place at their table. I treated the Hartwells like the most important guests in my parents' restaurant, always making sure their glasses were full and their comforts were met before I even took a seat. But Eleanor didn't see my hard work as a virtue. To her, it was just trade. She looked at my parents, people who had survived a war and built a future from scratch, and she saw new money. She saw people who were a little too loud, who worked a little too hard, and who didn't quite know which fork to use for the fish. She thought she was better than us because her wealth was inherited and mine was earned. She didn't realize that the very grit she looked down upon was the only thing keeping her own family's traditions from crumbling into the dust. My parents taught me how to build an empire, but they also taught me when to walk away from a bad investment. And standing there in my kitchen, listening to the echo of her insults, I realized that for 12 years, I had been investing my soul into a woman who was spiritually bankrupt. I was done building her legacy. It was time to start protecting mine. Was so nervous I'd spent 2 hours making sure my hair was perfectly smooth and my dress was modest but elegant. David kept squeezing my hand in the car, telling me his mother was particular, but that she'd love me once she got to know me. I believed him back then. I didn't know yet that particular was just a polite word for someone who carries a measuring stick everywhere they go, just waiting to tell you that you've come up short. The Hartwell estate was beautiful, I'll give it that. Manicured lawns, white pillars, and a silence so thick you felt like you had to whisper just to breathe. When Eleanor walked into the parlor, she didn't hug me. She didn't even really smile. She just stood there, draped in pearls that looked heavier than my parents' first car, and looked me up and down like she was inspecting a piece of furniture that had been delivered to the wrong address. I brought a gift, of course. My mother had insisted. It was a beautiful silk scarf from a boutique in San Francisco and a small box of the finest almond cookies from our family's bakery. I handed them to her with a genuine smile, my heart racing. Eleanor took the box, peered at the label for a fraction of a second, and handed it to a housekeeper without even opening it. "How colorful," she said, her voice like a cool breeze over an ice cube tray. During dinner, the air felt thin. Every time I mentioned my parents' business or my own career in marketing, she would tilt her head and say something like, "How interesting that you spend so much time working." She made it sound like I was describing a hobby of collecting mud. The moment that stayed with me, though, the one that should have warned me, happened when David stepped out to take a phone call. Eleanor leaned in, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. She didn't ask about my dreams or my favorite books. She looked at me and said, "You're very industrious, Josephine. I suppose that comes from your background. But do understand, the Hartwells have a certain way of doing things. We value stability over ambition." She pronounced industrious like it was a smudge on a window. To her, my hard work wasn't a sign of character, it was a sign of my place. I was a worker bee, and she was the queen. David came back and smoothed it over, laughing it off as his mother being old school. I forced myself to laugh too, thinking I could win her over with kindness. I didn't realize then that you can't win a game when the person holding the rules has already decided you've lost. By the time David popped the question, I had convinced myself that our wedding would be the bridge to finally bring Eleanor and me together. I thought, surely, a wedding is a time for building family, not walls. But honey, I learned real quick that for the Hartwells, a wedding wasn't a celebration of love, it was a branding event. Eleanor took over before I could even open a single bridal magazine. She had a list of vendors, a list of acceptable guests, and a very specific vision that didn't include a single ounce of my heritage or my personality. When I mentioned wanting to serve a few traditional Vietnamese appetizers, just a little nod to my parents and where I came from, Eleanor just sighed that long, disappointed sigh of hers. She told me, "Josephine, dear, we want the evening to be cohesive. Let's stick to the classics. We wouldn't want to confuse the guests with anything too pungent." So, I did what I'd been taught to do. I swallowed my pride and I worked. Since David was busy with his firm and Eleanor was too delicate for the actual labor of planning, the entire weight of the execution fell on my shoulders. I was the one who spent 6 hours at the printers making sure the cardstock was the exact shade of eggshell Eleanor demanded. I was the one who tracked down the specific lilies that were out of season because she had used them at her own wedding 40 years prior. I was the bride, but I felt more like a highly efficient, unpaid wedding coordinator. I handled the seating charts that kept Eleanor's difficult cousins apart, I managed the caterers, and I even went over the floral arrangements at 5 o'clock in the morning on the day of the ceremony. My parents offered to pay for half, but Eleanor wouldn't hear of it. She wanted total control, even if it meant David and I were sidelined in our own story. The morning of the wedding, I remember standing in the back of the church, clutching my bouquet so hard my knuckles were white. Eleanor walked past me to take her seat. She didn't look at my dress, which my mother had spent months helping me find. She didn't tell me I looked beautiful. She just reached out, straightened a stray petal on one of the floral displays I'd spent all night agonizing over, and said, "The flowers look adequate, Josephine. At least you're good with logistics." She walked away without another word. In that moment, surrounded by hundreds of people and a mountain of white lace, I felt completely invisible. I was the person who had made the magic happen, but to the woman who was now my mother-in-law, I was just the help that happened to be wearing a white dress. I smiled for the photos and I danced the first dance, telling myself that once we were legally family, things would change. I didn't know then that I was just signing up for a 12-year shift at a job that didn't pay in love. 5 years into my marriage, I thought the miracle had finally arrived. When I saw those 2 pink lines on the test, I didn't just see a baby, I saw a white flag of peace. In my heart, I truly believed that once Eleanor held her own flesh and blood, her first grandchild, she would finally see me as more than just a logistics coordinator. I thought a baby would make me permanent. The pregnancy was hard on my body, but I still didn't stop. I worked my full-time job and kept right on managing the Hartwell social calendar, even when my ankles were swollen and I was dizzy with exhaustion. I remember planning a charity luncheon for Eleanor when I was 8 months along. I was on my hands and knees in her garden, tucking place cards into holders, while she sat on the porch sipping iced tea. She didn't offer me a chair, she just reminded me not to let the sun wilt the shrimp cocktail. Then came the day Lily was born. It was a long, grueling labor, 36 hours of pain and hope. When the nurses finally placed that beautiful, screaming little bundle in my arms, I felt like the luckiest woman on earth. She had my dark hair and David's nose, a perfect blend of two worlds. An hour later, Eleanor floated into the recovery room. She didn't look at me. She didn't ask how I was feeling after nearly 2 days of labor. She walked straight to the bassinet like she was approaching a throne. She picked up Lily, cooing about the Hartwell chin and the Hartwell eyes, talking to that baby as if I weren't even in the room. "She's a prize, David," Eleanor whispered, her back turned to my hospital bed. "She looks just like your grandmother. A true Hartwell through and through." I cleared my throat, my voice raspy from shouting through the contractions. "We were thinking of naming her Lily, Eleanor. My mother's favorite flower is the lily." Eleanor didn't even turn around. She just adjusted the baby's blanket and said, "It's a bit common, isn't it? But I suppose it's fine for now. We'll have to make sure she's registered for the junior league early. We wouldn't want her heritage to be muddled." In that moment, the joy in the room felt like it was sucked out through the vents. I wasn't the mother of her grandchild, I was the incubator for her legacy. I was a vessel that had delivered a pure Hartwell to her doorstep. She didn't want a relationship with me, she wanted to bypass me entirely to get to the child. I looked at David, hoping he'd say something, hoping he'd tell her that his wife had just done something miraculous. But he was just beaming at his mother, so relieved that she was finally happy. I realized then that a baby doesn't bridge a gap when one person is busy digging a moat. Lily was here, and she was my heart, but to Eleanor, I was still just the hired help who had finally delivered the most important package of all. After that day in the hospital, I think a part of me went into survival mode. I stopped looking for love and started looking for peace, and in the Hartwell family, peace was something you had to build with your own 2 hands every single day. I became what I call the invisible engine. If the Hartwell family was a grand old clock on the mantle, I was the tiny, greasy gears behind the face, grinding away in the dark so the hands could move smooth as silk. Let me tell you what a Tuesday looked like for just someone David married. My day didn't start with coffee and the news, it started with a master spreadsheet. I had a color-coded calendar that would make a NASA engineer dizzy. I wasn't just tracking David and Lily, I was tracking the whole clan. I knew when David's brother, Marcus, had his teeth cleaned. I knew when Eleanor's car needed the oil changed. I knew that Aunt Patricia's anniversary was coming up and that she'd be heartbroken if she didn't get a specific type of rare orchid that only one shop across town carried. I'd spend my lunch hour at my real job, the one that actually paid me, sneaking onto gift websites. I'd buy the pearls for the nieces' graduations. I'd pick out the silk ties for the nephews. I'd even write the cards, disguising my handwriting or printing them out so they looked like they came from David or Eleanor. I'd drive those gifts to the post office, standing in line with my arms aching, just so a Hartwell could open a box 3 states away and say, "Oh, isn't it wonderful how our family always remembers?" Then there were the reservations. You haven't lived until you've tried to book a table for 22 people at a 5-star restaurant on a holiday weekend because Eleanor decided at the last minute she felt like Italian. I was the one on the phone, sweet-talking managers, pulling favors, and putting my own credit card down for the deposit. I was the one who checked the menus for everyone's allergies, making sure Uncle Arthur didn't have a lick of shellfish and that the kids had their chicken tenders ready the moment they sat down. When we'd all finally gather, I'd sit at the end of the table, exhausted, my feet throbbing under the tablecloth. I'd watch Eleanor hold court, basking in the glow of a perfectly orchestrated evening. She'd lean back, glass of wine in hand, and say to the table, "We Hartwells have always been so good at keeping traditions alive. It's just in our blood, I suppose." David would nod, Marcus would toast, and I'd just take a quiet sip of water. Nobody asked who called the florist. Nobody asked who spent 4 hours updating the family medical history for the doctor. I was the engine, honey, and the thing about engines is that nobody notices them until they stop humming. I was keeping their world spinning, and I was doing it so well they actually convinced themselves the world just spun that way on its own. That night, after I'd tucked Lily into bed and kissed her forehead, whispering one more time that she was loved and she belonged, I went downstairs to find David. He was in his armchair, scrolling through his phone, looking as relaxed as a man who didn't have a care in the world. I sat down opposite him, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "David," I said, my voice tight. "We need to talk about what your mother said to Lily today." He didn't even look up at first. "Oh, Mom called? What is it now? Another change to the Sunday brunch menu?" "No, David. She told our 7-year-old daughter that I'm not really part of this family. She told her I'm just someone you married." Lily came home crying, asking me if it was true. Finally, he looked up, but he didn't look outraged. He looked tired. He gave that little sigh, the one I'd come to recognize as the sound of him preparing to sweep my feelings under the rug. "Josie, come on. You know how Mom is. She's 70. She's old-fashioned. She comes from a different time where these distinctions matter to people." "Distinctions?" I felt the heat rising in my neck. "David, she didn't make a distinction. She erased me. She told our child that her mother is an outsider. After 12 years, after everything I do for all of you, I'm still just the help in her eyes. And you're calling that old-fashioned?" David stood up and walked over, trying to put a hand on my shoulder, but I pulled away. "Sweetheart, she doesn't mean it maliciously. She's just set in her ways." She probably didn't even realize Lily was listening. "I'll mention it to her, okay? I'll tell her to be more careful with her phrasing." "Phrasing?" I whispered. The word felt like ash in my mouth. "I don't want you to tell her to be careful. I want you to tell her she's wrong. I want you to tell her that if she can't respect the woman you chose to build a life with, then she doesn't get the privilege of being in our daughter's life. I want you to stand up for me, David." He looked at me then, and for the first time in 12 years, I really saw him. I saw the boy who was still afraid of his mother's disapproval. I saw the man who would always choose the path of least resistance. "I can't do that, Josie," he said softly. "She's my mother. She's the matriarch of the Hartwells. I can't just start a war over a few clumsy words. Why can't you just be the bigger person? You've always been so good at handling her. Just let it go for the sake of the family." The silence that followed was the loudest thing I've ever heard. In that moment, the invisible engine inside me finally seized up. I realized I wasn't just alone in Eleanor's house, I was alone in my own marriage. David wasn't my partner in this, he was a spectator, watching me drown and telling me the water wasn't that cold. "The bigger person," I said, my voice strangely calm. "I've been the bigger person for over a decade, David. I've been so big I've practically disappeared." "Josie, don't be dramatic," he said, turning back to his phone. "It'll blow over by morning. It always does." I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I just watched him settle back into his chair, oblivious to the fact that the woman he thought he knew had just walked out of the room emotionally. I stood there in the shadows of our living room and realized that if I was truly just someone he married, then I had no business doing the work of a Hartwell ever again. "You're right, David," I said to his back. "It's all going to be very different by morning." I didn't sleep much that night. I laid there in the dark, listening to the steady, rhythmic sound of David's breathing, and I felt a strange sort of peace settle over me. It was the peace of a soldier who finally realizes the war they've been fighting was over a long time ago, and that they'd been fighting on the wrong side. For 12 years, my mind had been like a beehive, constantly buzzing with, "What does Eleanor need?" and "How can I make this easier for the Hartwells?" But that night, the bees went quiet. I took a deep breath, and for the first time since I'd said "I do," I made a vow to myself. I wasn't going to yell, and I wasn't going to pack a suitcase. I was just going to stop. The next morning, the sun hit the kitchen floor just like it always did, but I didn't reach for my master's spreadsheet. When David came down for breakfast, he was already looking at his watch, probably expecting me to remind him about his brother's birthday dinner or his father's prescription refill. I just set a cup of coffee in front of him and smiled. It was a kind smile, the kind you give a stranger at the bus stop. "Hey, Josie," he mumbled, shuffling through some papers. "Did you ever get a gift for Marcus? His dinner is tonight, right?" "I'm not sure, honey," I said, my voice light as a feather. "I've been so focused on work and Lily lately. I'm sure you or your mom have it handled." He paused, a piece of toast halfway to his mouth. He looked at me for a second, confused, like he'd heard a word in a language he didn't speak. "Oh. Right. I thought you, well, I'll check with Mom then." I watched him walk out the door, and I felt something shift inside me. The people pleaser in me, that girl who was always jumping to fill the silence or fix the problem, had gone on vacation. In her place sat the observer. It's a powerful thing, honey, to stop being the lead actor in someone else's play and start being the audience. I spent the rest of the day watching the Hartwell world from the sidelines. I saw the emails coming in from Patricia about the upcoming family reunion, emails I would usually answer within minutes. I watched them sit in my inbox. I saw the reminders on the kitchen calendar for Eleanor's various club meetings. I didn't say a word. I felt lighter, like I'd shed a heavy winter coat in the middle of July. I realized that my value to this family had been built entirely on my usefulness. If I wasn't useful, what was I? To them, I was a ghost. But to myself? I was finally becoming a person again. I was reclaiming my time, my energy, and my dignity. I sat on the patio that afternoon, watching Lily play in the grass, and I realized that the vow of silence wasn't about being petty. It was about truth. If I wasn't really family, then I didn't have the authority to manage their lives. And if I didn't have the authority, I certainly didn't have the responsibility. I took a sip of my tea and waited. I knew the cracks would start showing soon. After all, you can't pull the engine out of a car and expect it to keep cruising down the highway for long. Now, if there was one event on the Hartwell calendar that carried the weight of a royal coronation, it was Eleanor's birthday. And this wasn't just any birthday, it was the big 7-0. In years past, by this time in April, I'd have been 3 months deep into the planning. I'd have secured the private room at the club, vetted a 4-course menu, and sent out hand-calligraphed invitations to relatives as far away as Charleston and Chicago. But this year, the silence in my house was absolute. I sat at the kitchen table with my morning tea, watching the dates on the calendar crawl closer to the big day. My phone sat there on the granite countertop, quiet as a stone. Usually, it would be buzzing every 10 minutes with texts from Patricia asking about the dress code, or Marcus wondering how much he owed for the group gift. But because I hadn't sent out that first save-the-date email, the rest of them seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep. David was the most oblivious of them all. He'd wander into the kitchen, whistling, and ask if we had any plans for the weekend. I'd just smile and say, "Nothing on my schedule, honey. Isn't it nice to have some quiet time?" He'd nod, completely unaware that a Category 5 hurricane was brewing just over the horizon. You see, David had spent 12 years under the impression that these parties just happened. He thought invitations mailed themselves, that cakes appeared by divine intervention, and that reservations were naturally held by the universe in the Hartwell name. He didn't see the work, so to him, the work didn't exist. About 2 weeks before the date, I saw him pause in front of the refrigerator, staring at the empty space where the invitation usually hung. He scratched his head, looking a little ruffled. "Hey, Josie. When is Mom's dinner again? I haven't seen the email with the details." I didn't miss a beat. I just kept folding the laundry, smooth as silk. "Oh, I'm not sure, David. I haven't received an invitation either. I figured since your mother made it clear I'm not really family, she probably wanted you or Patricia to handle the inner circle arrangements this year. I didn't want to overstep my bounds as just someone you married." He let out a nervous little laugh. "Right. Yeah, I'm sure Patricia has it handled then. She probably just forgot to CC you." I watched him go back to his laptop, satisfied with that flimsy excuse. He didn't call Patricia. He didn't check with his mother. He just went right back to sleep at the wheel. I went back to my laundry, feeling a strange, cold thrill. The first failure was officially in motion. For the first time in a decade, the Hartwell matriarch was heading toward her milestone birthday with no venue, no guest list, and no plan. And me? I was just going to sit back and watch the clock tick. I leaned back against that hard wooden bench, feeling the cool condensation of my water glass against my palm. Around me, the Hartwell family was unraveling like a cheap sweater caught on a nail. David was frantically waving down a waiter who was far too busy to care, and Patricia was arguing with Marcus about whose job it had been to bring the gift from the siblings, the gift that, it turned out, didn't exist because neither of them had thought to actually buy it. I just watched. I smiled, and I sipped. You know, honey, there's a strange kind of peace that comes when you stop trying to hold back the tide. For years, I would have been the one jumping up to fix this. I'd have been the one whispering in the manager's ear, magically producing a backup cake from my car, or smoothing over Eleanor's ruffled feathers with a well-timed compliment. My heart would have been racing, my stomach in knots, terrified that a Hartwell event might be anything less than perfect. But sitting there in that noisy, neon-lit bistro, I felt as calm as a millpond. I watched a bead of sweat roll down David's temple as he tried to explain to his mother why the wine list didn't include her favorite vintage. I watched Eleanor's mouth pinch into a thin, bitter line, the realization finally dawning on her that without me, her illustrious family was just a group of disorganized adults who couldn't plan a picnic in a park. I looked at Eleanor, really looked at her, and I didn't feel a speck of guilt. I thought about my parents' restaurant, where every guest was treated with dignity regardless of where they came from. I thought about the 12 years of adequate and industrious and just someone he married. Every snub was a brick in the wall she had built, and now she was trapped behind it, wondering why it was so cold and lonely. She looked over at me again, her eyes pleading for a second, silently asking me to jump in and save the night. To be the invisible engine one more time. I simply met her gaze, tilted my glass in a tiny, silent toast, and took another slow sip. It wasn't a smile of malice, honey. It was a smile of freedom. I was realizing that I didn't have to be the glue for people who didn't even acknowledge the stickiness. The bigger person had left the building, and the woman who remained was enjoying her water, the loud music, and the beautiful, chaotic sight of a family finally forced to face their own reflection. For the first time in 12 years, I wasn't working. I was just a guest, exactly what she always said I was. And let me tell you, the view from the sidelines was absolutely spectacular. After the birthday disaster, you'd think they would have woken up. You'd think David or Patricia would have sat down and said, "Wait a minute, how did all this stuff used to happen?" But that's the thing about entitlement, honey, it makes people blind to the hands that feed them until the plate comes back empty. The summer of silence settled over us like a thick, humid fog. Memorial Day was the first to fall. Usually, I'd have spent weeks marinating short ribs, ordering the good charcoal, and sending out the "who's bringing what" list so we didn't end up with 6 bags of chips and no napkins. This year, I didn't send a single text. When Memorial Day Monday rolled around, David looked up from his coffee around noon and said, "Hey, what time are we heading over to Marcus's for the cookout?" I didn't even look up from my book. "I'm not sure, dear. Did Marcus invite us?" "I haven't heard a word. I just assumed everyone was doing their own thing since no one reached out to me." We ended up eating takeout on the patio, just the 3 of us. It was quiet, and Lily was happy, but I could see the wheels turning in David's head as he scrolled through social media and saw other families gathered at the lake. He looked confused, like a man who had walked into a room and forgotten why he was there. Then came Father's Day. Now, David's father is a quiet man, a man who likes his routine and his specific brand of scotch. For a decade, I was the one who made sure his gift was wrapped in gold paper, that his favorite steakhouse had a booth reserved, and that all three of his sons actually showed up at the same time. This year, I did exactly what David asked of me. I let his family handle it. The result? Marcus forgot entirely. Patricia sent a "Happy Father's Day" text at 10 o'clock at night. And David? David realized at 3 o'clock in the afternoon that he hadn't even bought a card. He spent an hour driving around to open drugstores, looking frazzled and sweat-stained, only to find the GDAD section picked clean. He ended up giving his father a "World's Greatest Graduate" card with the word "graduate" crossed out and "Dad" written in ballpoint pen. The friction started getting louder. It wasn't just the missed holidays, it was the daily grit of a family that had lost its oil. David's father missed his haircut. Eleanor missed her bridge club because no one reminded her the location had moved. The family group chat, once a bustling hub of coordination, all led by me, turned into a graveyard of, "Is anyone doing anything for the 4th?" and "Did anyone check on Dad?" I watched the "just someone he married" label pull away like an old bandage. I wasn't the one causing the chaos, honey. I was just the one who stopped preventing it. I spent my summer afternoons in the garden with my daughter, teaching her how to grow tomatoes and how to stand tall in the sun. For the Hartwells, it was a summer of missed connections and cold shoulders. For me, it was the most peaceful season of my life. I was finally learning that the world doesn't stop turning just because you stop pushing it. But for a family built on the work of a ghost, the world was slowing down to a very uncomfortable crawl. By the time July rolled around, the crown jewel of the Hartwell calendar was looming, the annual family reunion. Now, this wasn't just a little backyard gathering, honey. This was a 15-year tradition involving 4 branches of the family, 3 different states, and a mountain of logistics. For 12 of those years, I had been the one booking the lodge, organizing the Cousin Olympics for the kids, and creating the digital itinerary that kept everyone moving in the right direction. But this year, the calendar on my fridge for the last week of July remained beautifully, terrifyingly blank. The phone calls started on a Tuesday afternoon. It was David's cousin, Sarah, from Chicago. She sounded frantic. "Josie, I've been checking my email every hour. Where's the link for the lodge deposit? And I haven't seen the spreadsheet for the potluck dinner yet. I need to know if I'm bringing the potato salad or the paper goods." I leaned back in my chair, watching a blue jay land on the bird feeder. "Oh, Sarah, it's so good to hear your voice. But I'm afraid I'm the wrong person to ask. I haven't heard anything about the reunion this year. I assumed with everything Eleanor said about family lately, she or one of the siblings wanted to take the reins." There was a long, stunned silence on the other end. "But you always do it. If you aren't doing it, who is?" "I'm not sure, sugar," I said sweetly. "I'm sure someone will step up. They're such a close-knit family, after all." Over the next 3 days, my phone was like a hot potato. Marcus called. Patricia called. Even David's second cousin twice removed called. They were all asking the same thing: where's the link? Where are the plans? Who's in charge? It was like a hive of bees that had lost its queen. They were buzzing around in circles, bumping into each other, and getting angrier by the minute because nobody knew how to build the honeycomb. David finally came home that Friday looking like he'd been pulled through a knothole. He slumped at the kitchen table and dropped his head into his hands. "Josie, my phone won't stop ringing. Everyone is asking about the reunion. Mom is crying because she thinks nobody wants to see her this year. Why didn't you set it up?" I looked at him, my expression as smooth as a polished stone. "David, honey, we talked about this. Your mother told our daughter that I'm not really family. For me to organize a Hartwell family reunion would be, well, it would be overstepping, wouldn't it? I wouldn't want to be the outsider dictating where the real family spends their summer." "But it's been 15 years, he groaned. "You can't just let a 15-year tradition die." "I'm not letting it die, David," I said gently. "I'm just stepping out of the way so the people it actually belongs to can keep it alive. If it matters to the Hartwells, I'm sure one of you will book the lodge tonight." But of course, they didn't. Marcus thought David was doing it. David thought Patricia had it. And Eleanor just waited for the magic to happen. By Sunday night, the lodge was fully booked by a corporate retreat, and the 15-year Hartwell tradition was officially dead. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful, honey, it was the sound of a family realizing that their traditions weren't built on blood or heritage. They were built on the back of a woman they had spent a decade pretending wasn't even there. Once that reunion fell through, the atmosphere in the Hartwell clan went from chilly to downright toxic. You see, honey, in every family, there's usually one person who acts like a shock absorber. For 12 years, that was me. When Marcus made a snide comment about Patricia's husband, I was the one who pulled Patricia aside and changed the subject. When Patricia forgot to thank Marcus for a favor, I was the one who sent a little thank you text from her phone or bought a six-pack of his favorite beer and said it was from her. I spent a decade translating Hartwell into a kindness, and without my translation, they all started realizing they didn't much like what the others were actually saying. By August, the siblings were at each other's throats. It started over something small, a borrowed lawnmower that wasn't returned, but without me there to play the diplomat, it turned into a full-scale war. I remember sitting in the living room while David was on speakerphone with both of them. It was like listening to a sandbox fight between toddlers, only these toddlers had mortgages and gray hair. "You're just like Mom, Patricia," Marcus shouted through the phone. "You think everyone is here to serve you. You didn't even check in on me when I had that flu last month." "Oh, please, Marcus," Patricia snapped back, her voice dripping with venom. "I was busy. Unlike you, I actually have a life. And for your information, David was supposed to be the one checking on the family schedule. Why is everything a mess lately?" David looked at me, pleading with his eyes for me to jump in, to grab the phone and weave some of my usual magic. I just picked up my knitting and focused on a pearl stitch. I wasn't going to be the bridge they walked over anymore. Without my smoothing over, years of resentment started bubbling up. They started digging up old grudges from high school, fighting over who was the favorite child and who had contributed less to their parents' care. It turns out, when the invisible engine stops, the passengers start blaming each other for why the car isn't moving. Eleanor tried to intervene, but she only made it worse. She'd call one to complain about the other, expecting me to be the secret vault where all those secrets stayed safe. Instead, I just listened politely and said, "That sounds stressful, Eleanor. I'm sure you children will work it out. By the end of the month, Marcus and Patricia weren't speaking. David was caught in the middle, frazzled and exhausted from trying to do a job he didn't have the skills for. The real family was falling apart at the seams, and all I had to do was sit back, stay quiet, and keep my stitches straight. It's a sad thing to watch, honey, but sometimes you have to let the fire burn so people can finally see how much work you were doing just to keep the sparks off the rug. Up until that point, the Hartwells thought my little hobby was just about parties and pretty napkins. They thought I was just a social secretary with a knack for picking out the right flowers. But honey, that September, the stakes moved from bruised egos to real, cold life and death stakes. You see, David's father, Arthur, is a man of few words and even fewer memories when it comes to his health. For years, I was the one who kept the log of his blood pressure readings. I was the one who had the specialist's number on speed dial and made sure his heart medication was refilled before the bottle even looked half empty. I didn't just remind him about his appointments, I'd call him an hour before, tell him I was coming by with a coffee, and drive him there myself to make sure he actually walked through the clinic doors. But this year, I had stepped back from the medical calendar too. I had given David the binder with all of his father's records back in June. I told him clearly, David, your father has a critical cardiology follow-up in September. It's in the book. Well, David put that book on a shelf and, I suppose, assumed the universe would handle the rest. On a Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. It was Eleanor, and for the first time in 12 years, she didn't sound like a queen. She sounded like a frightened old woman. Josephine, she gasped, her voice trembling. Arthur, he fainted in the garden. We're in the ambulance. They're saying his blood pressure is through the roof and he hasn't been taking his new prescription. Didn't he have an appointment to check this? Why didn't anyone tell us? I felt a pang of genuine sorrow for Arthur. He was a good man caught in the crossfire, but I kept my voice steady. I'm so sorry to hear that, Eleanor. I hope he's okay. David has the medical binder. The appointment was scheduled for last Thursday at 2 o'clock. I'm surprised he didn't mention it to you. The silence on the other end was heavy with the weight of realization. Last Thursday had come and gone. David had been at a golf outing. Marcus had been at the beach. Patricia had been at the spa. And Arthur? Arthur had sat on his porch, forgotten, while his heart struggled to keep up. When I got to the hospital later that evening, the real family was huddled in the waiting room. They looked small. They looked disorganized. David was pacing, his hair a mess, clutching that medical binder like it was written in a foreign language. He looked at me, his eyes red-rimmed. Josie, I didn't. I forgot to look at the date. I thought the doctor's office would call. Why didn't they call me? They probably called the primary contact on file, David, I said softly. Which was you. I changed the emergency contact info months ago, remember? It finally hit them then. The engine hadn't just been making sure the birthday cake was chocolate. The engine had been the heartbeat of the family. I was the one who kept them safe. I was the one who guarded their health while they were too busy being important. As Arthur lay in that hospital bed, hooked up to monitors that beeped in the stillness, the Hartwells finally realized that they hadn't just lost a party planner. They had lost their safety net. And for the first time, they looked truly terrified of the world they'd have to navigate without me. A few weeks after Arthur got back from the hospital, the silence in my house was broken by a sound I never expected to hear. It was late, maybe 10 o'clock on a rainy Tuesday, and my phone began to buzz on the nightstand. I saw the name Eleanor flashing on the screen, and for a second, I thought it was another emergency. When I picked up, there was no sharp greeting, no haughty instructions. There was just the sound of ragged, heavy sobbing. "Josephine," she gasped out, her voice cracking like dry parchment. I can't do this anymore. Everything is falling apart. I don't know what's happened to us." I sat up in bed, pulling the quilt around my shoulders. I didn't rush to comfort her. I just listened. "Arthur is home, but he's so weak," she wailed. "Marcus and Patricia had a shouting match in the driveway this morning over who was supposed to pick up his oxygen tanks, and now neither of them is answering my calls. The house is a mess. I tried to order the groceries like you used to, but the app locked me out, and I don't know the password. I'm sitting here in the dark, Josephine, and I realized I don't even know when my own husband's next follow-up is. I went to look at the calendar, and it's blank. It's all just empty white squares." She took a shuddering breath, the kind that comes from a person who has finally hit the wall. "We used to be such a dignified family. We used to have our traditions, our dinners, our togetherness. Now, it's like everyone has stopped caring. It's like a rot has set into the house. My children are strangers to each other, and I'm a stranger in my own life. Why did everyone stop, Josephine? Why did they just give up on us?" It was that "everything is falling apart" speech I'd seen coming for months. She was mourning the loss of a lifestyle she thought was her birthright. She truly believed that the grace and order of her life had been a natural result of being a Hartwell. She couldn't see that the rot she was talking about wasn't new, it was just that the person who used to paint over the cracks every single morning had finally put down the brush. "It sounds like you're having a very difficult time, Eleanor," I said, my voice calm and steady as a mountain stream. "Difficult?" she cried. "It's a nightmare. I don't understand what changed. 1 year ago, we were celebrating the reunion and planning the holidays, and now I'm afraid to even pick up the phone. What did we do to deserve this?" "What changed, Josephine? Please, just tell me what changed." She was begging me. The matriarch of the Hartwells was on the other end of the line, stripped of her pride, asking the outsider to explain why her world had stopped spinning. I looked out the window at the rain hitting the glass, and I knew the time for being a ghost was over. It was time for someone he married to finally speak the truth. "You really want to know what changed, Eleanor?" I asked softly. "Yes," she whispered. "Anything. Just tell me." I took a deep breath. "Then I think you'd better sit down. Because we're about to have the conversation we should have had 12 years ago." I didn't raise my voice, Eleanor. I didn't need to. I just spoke with the quiet weight of 12 years of truth. "You asked what changed," I said into the phone, "and the answer is simple. The person you said wasn't really family finally started acting like it." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end, but I didn't stop. "For over a decade, you've enjoyed a life of perfect clockwork. You sat at the head of tables I reserved, In rooms I decorated, eating food I coordinated. You basked in the gratitude of relatives for gifts I picked out, wrapped, and mailed with your name on the card. You never had to worry about Arthur's heart or the sibling squabbles because I was the one standing in the gap, catching every ball your children dropped before it hit the floor. I let that sink in for a second. You called me industrious, Eleanor. You meant it as a slur, a way to remind me that I was the help. But that industry was what kept your legacy alive. I was the one who translated your coldness into something your children could tolerate. I was the one who made sure your old money dignity wasn't embarrassed by your own son's forgetfulness. Every birthday, every holiday, every doctor's visit, that wasn't Hartwell magic, Eleanor. That was me. It was my sweat, my memory, and my heart. But when you stood in your garden and told my 7-year-old daughter that her mother wasn't part of this family, that I was just someone David married, you did more than just hurt my feelings. You released me. You told me that I had no stake in this house. And if I'm not family, Eleanor, then I'm certainly not your servant. So, I stopped. I stopped doing the work that kept your world from crumbling. And what you're seeing now, the missed appointments, the forgotten birthdays, the children who can't stand to be in a room together, that is the real Hartwell family. That is what you built. I was just the one who spent 12 years hiding the cracks. She was silent, and for a moment, I thought the line had gone dead. Then I heard a small, broken sound. I didn't realize. I thought it was just David. David doesn't know what his father's blood pressure medication is called, Eleanor. He doesn't know your shoe size or Aunt Patricia's anniversary. None of them do. They didn't have to know because I made it look easy. I made it look like magic. But the magic is gone now, because the magician finally walked off the stage. You wanted a family of blood and pedigrees? Well, look around you. This is it. This is exactly what you asked for. I leaned back against my headboard, feeling a strange, hollow victory. I spent 12 years trying to earn a seat at your table through service. I thought if I was indispensable, I would finally be enough. But I realize now that being part of a family isn't about being useful. It's about being seen. And since you've made it clear you don't see me, I've decided I'm done making sure you're seen, too. The engine is off, Eleanor. If you want your family to move, you're going to have to find a way to push the car yourselves. After I hung up with Eleanor, I didn't feel the rush of adrenaline I expected. I just felt a profound, heavy clarity. I turned to see David standing in the doorway of our bedroom. He'd clearly heard the end of that conversation. He looked small in his pajamas, his face pale and eyes wide, like a boy who had just watched his favorite toy get broken. "Josie," he whispered, "was that really necessary? She's a 70-year-old woman. She's been crying for an hour. Can't you just help her fix this one last time? For me?" I stood up and walked over to him, not with anger, but with a firmness that made him go quiet. "No, David. I won't. And that brings us to the most important part of this whole mess. We need to talk about you." He started to do that thing he always did, the shoulder shrug, the nervous laugh, the "let's not make a scene" routine. I know. I should have checked the medical binder. I'll do better, I promise. I'll call Marcus tomorrow, Anne. Stop, I said, and for once, he actually did. This isn't about a binder, David. This is about us. For 12 years, I have lived on the perimeter of your life, doing the labor of a wife, a mother, and a daughter-in-law, while you stood by and watched your mother treat me like a temporary guest. Every time she insulted my heritage, or mocked my parents' hard work, or told our daughter I wasn't a real family, you didn't defend me. You smoothed. You made excuses. You asked me to be the bigger person because you were too cowardly to be a husband. I took a step closer, looking him dead in the eye. Here is the ultimatum, David. I am done being the invisible servant of the Hartwell family. I am done earning my keep through spreadsheets and secret favors. If you want this marriage to continue, if you want me to stay in this house as your wife, you are going to go to your mother tomorrow. You aren't going to smooth things over. You aren't going to tell her it was a misunderstanding. You are going to look her in the eye and tell her that what she said was wrong. You are going to tell her that I am the heart of this family, and that if she ever disrespects me again, or even hints that I don't belong, she loses access to me, and she loses access to Lily. David's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Josie, you're asking me to break her heart. No, I said, my voice as cold as a winter morning. I'm asking you to finally grow a spine and protect mine. I love you, David, but I love myself and my daughter more. I won't raise her in a house where her mother is an outsider. You choose right now. Are you a Hartwell son first, or are you my husband? Because if you're his mother's son, then you should probably go over there and help her figure out the grocery app. But if you're my husband, you'll do exactly what I said. No more excuses. No more smoothing. Just the truth. I walked past him and climbed back into bed, turning my back to him. The ball was in his court. For 12 years, I played the game by their rules. Now, the game was over, and David had to decide if he wanted to live in the reality I'd been maintaining for him, or the wreckage his mother had created. I didn't say another word. I just waited for the morning to see which man would wake up. Well, it's been 6 months since that rainy night, and let me tell you, honey, the world didn't end. But it certainly changed its tilt. David did go over there the next morning. It wasn't pretty, and there were more tears than a Sunday morning soap opera, but for the first time in his life, he didn't apologize for me. He stood his ground. He told Eleanor that the someone he married was the only reason his father was still breathing and the only reason their family hadn't dissolved years ago. He told her that if she wanted to see Lily, she had to start by seeing me. It took a while. There were months of stiff, awkward silence, and a few more failed Sunday dinners where they actually had to cook for themselves. But eventually, a slow, grudging apology arrived. It wasn't a grand bouquet of roses or a public proclamation, it was a small, handwritten note from Eleanor. It simply said, I didn't understand the weight you were carrying until I tried to lift it myself. Please come for tea. I went. But I didn't bring my spreadsheet, and I didn't bring a gift. I went as a guest, and I sat there while she served me. Things are different now. We call it the new normal. The Hartwell calendar is still a bit of a mess, birthdays get missed sometimes, and the Christmas cards were 2 weeks late this year, but you know what? It's their mess to manage. I've reclaimed my Saturdays. I spend them in the park with Lily, or at my parents' bakery, or just sitting on my porch watching the sunset without a single RSVP to track. I'm no longer the invisible engine. I'm just Josephine. Looking back, I realized that my mistake wasn't being kind or being industrious. My mistake was thinking that if I made myself indispensable, I'd finally be loved. But honey, love that's based on your utility isn't love at all, it's just a service contract. You shouldn't have to be a magician just to be seen. You shouldn't have to be the glue just to be part of the picture. If I could leave you with one piece of a granny wisdom, it's this: never be afraid to let the things fall that weren't being held up by love. If you're the only one holding the roof up, eventually your arms are going to give out, and the people inside won't even realize the rain is falling until they get wet. Let them get a little damp, sugar. It's the only way they'll learn to appreciate the shelter you provided. Value is a funny thing. Sometimes people can only see it when they're looking at the empty space where you used to be. I'm not a ghost anymore, and I'm certainly not just someone he married. I'm the woman who knows her worth, and let me tell you, that's a much better legacy to leave my daughter than a perfectly organized family reunion. Now, the sun is setting, and I think I hear David starting the grill for dinner. And for the first time in 12 years. I didn't even have to tell him where the matches were. Well now, sweetheart, I hope you enjoyed listening to my story as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. It's a good reminder that we all deserve to be seen for who we are, not just for what we can do for others. If this story touched your heart, or maybe gave you a little bit of the strength you needed to set some boundaries of your own, I'd be ever so grateful if you'd let me know. Go ahead and give that like button a little tap, it helps more than you know. And if you'd like to sit on the porch with me again for the next story, be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring that little bell so you don't miss a thing. I'd love to hear from you down in the comments, too. Have you ever felt like the invisible engine in your own life? Or maybe you've had to stand up to a particular mother-in-law of your own. Tell me your story, I'll be right there reading them with a warm cup of tea. Until next time, honey, remember, you are the heart of your own story. Don't you ever let anyone make you feel like a guest in your own life. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon.